Hello everyone. Today with this session we are going to start with third module of our syllabus, that is microwave tubes. Now in the last module we have seen different passive devices which are used in the microwave communication circuit like waveguides, then ferrite devices and many other. Now in this module we will particularly focus on tubes which are used in the microwave communication circuits. Okay, so let's first look at why microwave tubes are used in the microwave circuitry. Now in the previous sessions or in the previous modules we have seen that one of the major problem while operating in the microwave region is that we don't achieve sufficient power levels if we are operating on a microwave frequency. So right now in the current era we are using solid state devices for microwave communication circuits. Now solid state devices means a device is made up of purely semiconductor material. If you are following the computers very closely, evolution of computers, nowadays the hard disks come as a solid state device, SSD hard disk. Now they are purely made up of integrated circuits. Now ICs are purely made up of semiconductor devices. So these solid state devices have preferred, or they are preferred because of their size, because they are small in size, they are lightweight, as well as they just generate the sufficient power or consume very minimal power, and that's why they are preferred. So in the current era solid state devices are preferred for microwave circuits, but still the first real sources of high frequency power or microwave power were the electron tubes. Okay, and they were the only source available at that time. So we will first look at these electron tubes which are still quite used in the several microwave circuits. Although today solid state diodes or transistor sources are used in majority of microwave applications, progress in solid state technology is steadily improving for the power versus frequency performance. As we have discussed just now, at a higher frequency achieving large power is very difficult task. So still some systems that are best served by the electron tubes. So even though there is a lot of evolution in the solid state technology, we are still reliant on the electron tubes for certain application. So for that reason we will focus on microwave tubes, as these are the first basic building block for understanding working of amplifiers and oscillators in the microwave region. Okay, so these are generally microwave applications that require very high powers and very high frequency, at very high frequency. So as we have seen in the previous model, again I am saying generating large power at microwave frequency is a very difficult task, and for that we need special devices. So as frequency increases into wavelength of a millimeter or sub millimeter range, it becomes difficult to produce even moderate power with solid state device. Okay, so tubes become much more useful at this frequency. So what we are doing, dividing our applications into two regions. For moderate power region or low power region we are using solid state devices, and now very high power region at very high frequency we still use the microwave tubes. So there is wide variety of microwave tube geometries. So tubes generally are cylindrical, but still they will have a different geometries attached to it. Uh, or there are several principles on which these tube operate, but all these types or principles or geometries have several common features. So although there is difference in geometry, difference in principle, most of the or many more features are there which are still common in all these types. One of such feature is interaction of electron beam with an electromagnetic field. Okay, so all these tubes exhibit one common feature at least, that is interaction of electron beam with a electromagnetic field, and how that is used for generating a high power that we are going to see. So microwave tubes can be grouped into two categories depending on type of electron beam and electromagnetic field interaction. So the way in which electron beam interacts with the electromagnetic field, that decides our type of microwave tube. First type is linear beam tube, or it is also called as O-type tube. In this tube, electron beam traverses through the length of the tube. So if we are considering this is a tube, so electron beam will traverse through the length of the tube and it is parallel to electric field. So electric field will be like this one. So both will be parallel. If E is like this one, that means magnetic field will be perpendicular to each other, and that will be like this one. Okay, so that is linear beam tube or O-type tube. In the crossed field tube, which is also called as M-type tube, M stands for magnetic, the focusing field is perpendicular to accelerating electric field. Now, instead of simple electron beam and electromagnetic field, there will be two types of electric fields. One will be focusing field and another will be accelerating electric field. Now these both fields will be perpendicular to each other, and that is used for generating high power. Okay, generally these microwave tubes are used as a amplifier, that is microwave amplifiers or microwave oscillators in the microwave communication circuits. Okay, or they are classified into either oscillators or amplifiers. So let's look at the first type of such microwave tube, which is called as a klystron. Klystron is a linear beam tube. That means it falls into category of O-type tube, which can be used as either amplifier or an oscillator, but it is generally preferred for amplification rather than oscillation. So why it is called as klystron? That is another question, or that is curiosity in the minds of students. So klystron word comes from combination of two words. First one is a Greek word called as a klys, K-L-Y-S, klys, which is a Greek verb referring to the action of waves breaking against a shore. So at a seashore, you might have seen waves of an ocean break against the seashore, and that action is referred to as a klys. And the second word is a electron. So klys plus tron, that becomes klystron. So waves breaking against a shore are nothing but our electron beam traveling through the linear tube, and electron means electromagnetic field which is applied across different cavities within the tube, which are providing the microwave input. We will see its working detail later on. So in a klystron amplifier, electron beam passes through two or more resonant cavities. In the previous session, we have seen what are cavity resonators. These cavity resonator provide maximum power at resonant frequency. So these cavity resonators are used for achieving a maximum power possible, which can be acquired at the output for as a amplified output. So at least two cavities has to be there. More than two are also supported. So for the first cavity in the series of cavities accepts an RF input, which is nothing but our microwave input. This cavity accepts also another input, which is called as electron beam input, and this electron beam is modulated by the microwave input by the process called as bunching, and it is divided into two regions, high density and low density region. So in the previous semesters or in the previous years, you have seen a process of modulation. This is a modulator. A modulator always has two inputs. One is a carrier and another is a modulating signal. Now in our case, modulating signal is a microwave input, that is RF, and carrier is a electron beam. So modulation will happen. between these two signals, and output is traveled through the electron tube, that is our klystron tube. So what type of modulation is carried out? We have seen different types of modulation in the previous semester, like amplitude modulation, phase modulation, or frequency modulation, but none of that is carried out in this particular modulator. The type of modulation that happens in this device is known as a velocity modulation. Again, we will see the details of velocity modulation later on during the explanation of this klystron tube working. Okay, so basic process is modulation and bunching. What is bunching and what is velocity modulation? We will see that as we move along. Okay, so the bunched beam, the word bunch, we already know what is the meaning of bunch. Bunch means bringing several items together and creating a bunch. So here we are bringing several electrons together to create a bunch. So such a bunched beam travels through the tube to the next cavity. If it is the only cavity, then that will be a output cavity, but if there are more than two cavities, then there will be several other cavities to after this particular cavity. So after the bunched beam comes out of the first cavity, it travels to the next cavity, which accentuates the bunching effect. That means bunching becomes even more comprehensive process as we go along the further cavities. So at the output cavity, which is a final cavity, RF power is extracted at a highly amplified level. So final cavity will perform the process of extracting the power from the bunched beam, and that is taken as a output. So at least two cavities should be used in this particular klystron tube, and that can produce up to 20 dB of gain, while using four cavities, which is a practically maximum limit, can give up to 80 to 90 dB of gain. Okay, so more the number of cavities, more the amount of gain, power gain. Now this gain is a power gain, not a voltage gain. You have to remember this thing. This gain is a power gain, not a voltage gain. So klystrons are capable of peak powers in the megawatt range. Okay, megawatt is a very large power, and that is easily obtained using these klystron tubes with microwave output or DC input power conversion efficiency 30 to 50%. So 50% maximum input power is converted into a microwave output power. Okay, so let's see how does this klystron look like. So the first type that we are looking at is a two cavity klystron. First we will see this, and then later on we will see the four cavity klystron. Okay, so two cavity klystron, as I have said, it is a linear beam or O type tube. So this is a widely used microwave amplifier operated on the principles of velocity and current modulation. Now the diagram on your screen is a schematic diagram, because the distance between the two cavities which are shown is not specified how much it should be, what should be the dimensions of the cavity, also it is not shown. So this is just a functional or schematic diagram without any dimension specified. So as you can see, this is a cathode which gives you the electron tube, electron beam. So electron beam is generated by this cathode. Then there are two cavities. First cavity, as you can see, it is named as a buncher cavity because it starts the bunching process, and the second cavity, which is at the output, is known as a catcher cavity. So it catches the electron beam and extracts the maximum power from it. Then there is a collector which collects the electron beam radiated by the cathode terminal. Okay, the space between buncher cavity and catcher cavity, that is this space, is known as drift space. This space is known as drift space. Drift means electron beam drifts along this particular space, that's why it is called as a drift space. Now as you can see in the diagram, both the cavities are both cavities are combined with the electron grids, As you can see here, grid is attached to both the cavities. These grids are connected to this cavity. Why? Because we are giving microwave input to this cavity. So this is our RF input, this is electron beam, and this cavity acts as a modulator. Okay, so this grid will be generating an electric field through which modulation process will occur. So if I have to talk about how the modulation process occur, I will just explain in the short. Okay, so this is electron beam, this is microwave input. Because of grid, there will be a electric field generated across the cavity, so it will be alternating voltage. Now this is our information signal, and it will apply we will apply an electron beam to this information signal, and modulation will happen, which will result in a bunching process, and this bunching will be carried out through this particular drift space, and maximum power will be extracted across the catcher cavity and output will be available. Now how this modulation occurs, that we will see later on, but this is the summary of how it works. So the electron beam is not collected across the output, beam is collected by the collector. So electron beam, as we know, it is called as a carrier in terms of modulation process. So carrier is always extracted before extracting the actual information. So carrier is not useful for the receiver, information is useful for the receiver. So that's what we are getting across the output of the catcher cavity. Okay, so let's look at how it happens. So all the electrons injected from cathode arrive at the first cavity with uniform velocity. So cathode is emitting electrons at a uniform velocity. So they arrive at a first cavity with uniform velocity. Now those electrons passing the first cavity gap at zeros of a gap voltage. Now this is very important statement. Now what does this mean? Let's look at that. Okay, so electron beams or electrons are arriving at a constant velocity. Now there is a voltage that appears across grid of a cavity. Now there is a narrow gap present in the cavity. If we have to see, okay, this is the gap, this region is a gap, so that is called as a gap voltage. That's why. So narrow gap, across that narrow gap we are having a gap voltage. Now this is my information. Now this is a constant velocity electron beam. Now there are three regions. This is a zero region, that means voltage is zero across these points. This is positive half cycle and this is negative half cycle. Now when these electrons of a constant velocity passes through the zero voltage period, then their velocity remains unchanged. When these electrons passes through positive half cycle of the gap voltage, then their velocity is increases. So velocity of electrons are increased during positive half cycle of a gap voltage. When electrons passes through the negative half cycle of a gap voltage, their velocity decreases. Okay, so at the output of a cavity, what we are getting, or at the end of a cavity, what we are getting, an electron beam, sum of electrons having a same velocity as the initial velocity, some electrons whose velocity is increased and some electrons whose velocity is decreased. Okay, and such bunching will keep on happening throughout the electron tube, and at the final cavity we will get a electron bunch of a different velocities. So the process of bunching we will see in detail in the next video, but right now we have to understand this is the process of what we are doing in the first cavity called as buncher cavity. So those electrons passing the first cavity gap at zero voltage of a gap voltage, pass through with the unchanged velocity. Those passing through positive half cycle of a gap voltage undergo increase in velocity, and those passing through negative swing of a gap voltage undergo decrease in velocity. Okay, that's what I have just explained. As a result of these actions, electrons gradually bunch together. Some are accelerated, some are retarded, and some are unchanged. So that creates a bunch together as they travel around the drift space. How they are bunched together along the drift space, we will see later on. The variation in electron velocity in the drift space is known as velocity modulation. So why it is called as modulation? Because electron velocity changes according to the changes in the gap voltage, and that is nothing but a modulation. A carrier changes according to the changes in the information signal. Okay, so that is velocity modulation. Now further on, the density of electrons in the second cavity gap varies cyclically with the time. So as these electron bunch come at the final cavity, their density, that means their proportion in the second cavity, varies cyclically with the time. That means time to time it keeps on varying, and this electron beam contains now a AC component because of this change in velocity, and is said to be now current modulated. Okay, so this is change in AC component means that there is a current modulation. The maximum bunching should occur approximately midway between the second cavity grids during its retarding phase. Retarding means slowing down the velocity of the electrons. Thus the kinetic energy is transferred from electrons to the field of second cavity. So what happens at the second, that is the output cavity? Whatever bunch we have collected at the catcher cavity, their kinetic energy is increased as it is traveled along the drift space because of velocity acceleration. Okay, so because they are accelerated, their kinetic energy is high. Sorry, let me change the pointer. So their kinetic energy has gone up because of this velocity modulation. Now this kinetic energy is converted into a electromagnetic field by this second cavity. So that is what it is said, kinetic energy is transferred from electrons to the field of second cavity. This field is appearing across the grid of a second cavity. The electrons then emerge from the second cavity with a reduced velocity and finally terminate at the collector. So grid captures the power. The grid across the second cavity captures the power because kinetic energy is converted into a voltage, and the electron beams are collected at the collector. So carrier is removed from the actual modulated wave. Okay, so that is what it is said, finally terminate at the collector. So the characteristics of these two cavity klystron are as follows. Efficiency is about 40%. 40% of input power is obtained at the output. The 40% efficiency does not mean reduction in power. The power is maximized, but if we apply 10 amount of power, 4 amount of power will be obtained, but its value will be much larger. Okay, so efficiency is about 40%. Output power is up to 500 kilowatt for continuous wave power. That means if you are using continuous wave microwave input, then it will be up to 500 kilowatt, and for pulsed power it is up to 30 megawatt at 10 gigahertz. So this is a very large power available at the output. So the power gain is about 30 dB. If you divide input power by this value, then you will get a 30 dB power gain. The cavity close to the cathode is known as buncher cavity or input cavity, and cavity close to the output is known as catcher cavity or output cavity, which catches the energy from the bunched electron beam. Okay, input cavity velocity modulates the electron beam, and output cavity converts kinetic energy to the uh, microwave output power from the bunched electron beam. Beam then passes through the catcher cavity and is terminated at the collector that we have just seen. Okay, so in this video we have seen the basic working of two cavity klystron. Now in the next video we will see the detailed process of velocity modulation and what is exactly happens in the bunching process. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.